The final. Dallas has now won 15 consecutive home games, most of those against tomato cans. The Eagles are not supposed to be a tomato can, although they certainly have looked like that lately. So at the moment, Dallas has leapfrogged ahead of the Eagles. They have the same record, but the Cowboys have the tiebreaker, and so they are currently the number 2 seed on your NFC big board. And the Eagles, free falling. The Eagles go down to the number 5 spot. Mike McCarthy getting a lot of love because he had a medical procedure this week and went out there and coached. He didn't really have to do much. The game was not ever in doubt. An appendectomy for Mike McCarthy. So let us discuss the question: How significant is this Cowboys win for Dak Prescott? And, well, it's significant in the sense that it's getting a lot of attention. But the question, again, how significant is the Cowboys win for Dak Prescott? So I've got Alice in Wonderland, Manny, Mo, and Jack, and Uber Eats. And we will combine all of these things together, and we will lay the foundation for this Maller monologue that will rock Overnight Nation. I think. I don't know. Who knows? All right. Now, the question about Dak Prescott, winning big regular season game against the Eagles, finally beating a good team. The Cowboys had not beaten a good team this season. And so this is not the proverbial monkey off the back for Dak Prescott. That is not what this game is. In fact, if you examine the situation, it does not dramatically change anything in terms of where Dak Prescott is. And we will be the grown-ups here in the room. Dallas was at home. They were favored in the game. It is December, which is regular season football. The Eagles' defense completely tattered. All of those things are true. All of those things are variables, which are absolutely true when you talk about Dak Prescott and the Cowboys winning this game. Did I think the Cowboys were going to win the game? No, I did not. If you saw the TV show over the weekend, you know that on Benny versus the Penny, I picked the Eagles. That game was over. The way the Eagles came out of the opening quarter of the game, it's very unlikely the Eagles are going to win this game. And sure enough, that was the case. But what the victory does do, while it doesn't change the narrative about Dak Prescott because it's not a playoff game, and it's so you don't change all that, but it does work like these island games. It's hot air in the balloon. The only reason the hot air balloon rises is because the air is hotter there than the air outside. So the hot air balloon, that's essentially what it is. It's watch out for Alice in Wonderland syndrome. Now, if you're not familiar with Alice in Wonderland syndrome, objects, they appear bigger. They appear bigger than they are, and we see this all the time in these primetime island games where people go out and they just dominate, and everyone gets all gaga, they get all horny, all excited, right? And then, but until I see Dak Prescott not ride the vomit comet in a big playoff game against a good team, and no, Tampa Bay last year was not a good team. Not a good team. Until I see that, I will continue to be a stubborn jackass when it comes to Dak Prescott. That's my position on that. The jury is in on Dak in big games. It's not like he's a second or a third year guy. He's been around long enough. I mean, we've seen what this guy can do. Now, does that mean it's going to continue forever? No, it doesn't mean it's going to continue forever. But at this point, until we see a reason to think that it's going to change, this is not the game. Right? This is not the game. The Eagles, it was more, they were just sloppy and disgusting. I didn't think Dak played all that well in this particular game. All right, now, when you got all those field goals, generally if your field goal kicker is being talked about like that, that's a bad sign. Now, turning the page, does Jalen Hurts' Eagles outlook change now? Does this change on the other side for the Eagles? Better stories in the losing locker room. Does this change things for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles? And the answer is yes. The direction they are now headed, they're headed to the off-the-beaten-path route depending on how you want to say it. Philly finds themselves behind the 49ers for the number one seed, even though they're 10-3. The Cowboys and Eagles are 10-3. Obviously, the head-to-head tiebreakers go against Philadelphia. But Philly, they still control their path in terms of getting the division title. So they're still in good shape in that regard. And the bigger issue here is that they might want to contact Manny, Mo, and Jack, the boys over at Pep Boys there, because their car needs a tune-up here in Philadelphia. The spark plugs are not quite sparking at this moment there. And Jalen Hurts said after the game, he said, "It's something we are going through, not something we are stuck in," was the quote from Jalen Hurts. Do you agree or disagree with that? Well, I agree with it. I don't think that people are going to always overreact to what you just saw. It's the prisoner of the moment syndrome. And the Eagles right now are an absolute dog food team. They are. I'm not going to sit here and tell you something other than that. The last couple of weeks have been puke football from the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Birds have to get their house in order. But I am a believer in that you are never as good as everyone tells you are, and you are also never as bad as everyone says you are when you lose. Right? When you win, everyone's, "Oh, you're great." When you lose, you're blah, blah. And it's always somewhere in the middle. But the Birds have to get their house in order here. And they've been placed in the slow cooker. And Jalen Hurts, the defense, we'll get to in a minute, the defense has been bad. But Jalen Hurts, the last month, 4 games for Jalen Hurts, he has not been anything more than a third-tier NFL quarterback. And that's a fact, Jack. Last 4 games, Jalen Hurts, he's got 4 touchdowns, 4 fumbles, and 2 interceptions, and a passer rating below 85. That is who Jalen Hurts has been over the last month. And so he got the contract. That's great. They got to the Super Bowl last year. They won 10 games. But right now, in this snapshot in time, Dak Prescott's rival with the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts, is not living up to his end of the proverbial bargain. Now, turning the page. Last word here. So the Eagles' defensive star, Fletcher Cox, he had a lot to say after the game. He was ranting and raving in the losing locker room there, which is where the better story is, the losing locker room. So Fletcher Cox, who did make a big play here, Cox, in the game, where the Cowboys, he had the sack, the strip of Dak Prescott, which led to a Philadelphia touchdown, defensive touchdown for the Philadelphia Eagles in this game. He gave the standard trope of the Eagles got punched in the mouth 2 weeks in a row. He gave that response there. He said they must figure out what teams are doing scheme-wise, was the way Fletcher Cox addressed it scheme-wise and obviously corrected. So Cox said that they have to hold each other accountable, and they will hold each other accountable. All right, so let us discuss how much stock do you put into Fletcher Cox and the confidence in an Eagles turnaround? So I've got the micro and the macro when it comes to the Eagles. You got the short game and the long game. So if you look at this objectively, the words themselves are emptiness, because I saw similar quotes coming out of the Eagles locker room after they got just the snot beat out of them by the 49ers. So I don't really put any stock in that. I would invest in that. But I mentioned the micro and the macro. So the short term, the Eagles will actually be okay. The long term is problematic. Do you understand? The short game is actually not bad because you look at the defense, and there's a great quote from my favorite hockey coach, Torts, who would say of the Eagles right now, we sucked from head to toe, which is what the Eagles have sucked from head to toe the last couple of weeks. Philly's allowed 33 points per game. That's bad, blah, blah, blah. But short term, the good news is that the Eagles they're ordering Uber Eats. And what they're getting from Uber Eats is nothing but cake. They're getting a lot of cupcakes upcoming here. And even as bad as the Eagles have looked the last couple weeks, if they can't beat up the Flotsam and Jetsam of the NFL, which is who they have upcoming, literally Flotsam and Jetsam is who they play the next few games. You got Seattle, a bad Seattle team, the Giants twice with Tommy Cutlets, and the Cardinals. That's who you got left. That's at least 3 wins, probably 4 wins. Probably 4 wins. Right there. So you'll end up 14-3 regular season. Good shot. You'll be the number 2 seed in the NFC because the Cowboys have a tougher schedule. The Cowboys will definitely end up gagging one of these games down the stretch, and so you end up as the number 2 seed, and things are okay. But then eventually you're going to have to play at the 49ers, right? Or you'll play the Cowboys. I think you'll beat the Cowboys because Dak sucks in big moments and all that. But the Eagles' defense, the defensive line's not great right now, and they're not particularly, even though they've won 10 games, even when they were winning, it's not like they're dominant. The only thing they're dominant at is the tushy-pushy. That's what they're really good at. So as long as they can get to 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and just pushy-tushy, they're in great shape. But outside of that, not so much. All right.